Hello everyone, today we're talking about typical depressive thought patterns. There are a few very typical ways in which depressed people see their world, how they see themselves in the world, and how they react to the world. And there are a few things like, for example, pessimism, where you always see everything in a negative light. Or that you see only in black and white, that you generalize, that you catastrophize, everything is very bad. That you always relate things to yourself and such things. And how you can recognize and uncover such typical thought patterns in yourself and how you can ultimately change them, that's what today's video is about. Welcome to Seelenkopfen. Today, we're going to break down a few typical depressive thought patterns. I'll just give you a few examples so you have an idea of what I'm talking about. So, let's say you've sent out a job application. For example, you're unemployed and racking your brain about how to get out of this situation. Then you send out an application, and right after the first one, you get a rejection. Non-depressive people would probably react by understanding that it usually takes a bit longer to find a job, that you just need to send out a few more applications, and that it doesn't really mean anything if the first application doesn't work out. Someone with typical depressive thought patterns would be completely devastated by this very first rejection. He generalizes from this, thinking, yes, that means no one wants me. If they don't want me, then no one does. And that means I'm a complete failure. I could sink into the ground with shame that this company didn't want me. This is a typically depressive way to react to such things, to setbacks, or black and white thinking, which means for you, it's all or nothing. So, there are no nuances, no shades of gray. Let's say you're lacking a bit of flexibility to react to life, or to interpret the things that happen to you. For you, there's only one perspective. And that's exactly the negatively tinted one you see through your depressive lens. And anything else is out of the question. And in doing so, things are sometimes grossly overinterpreted. For example, I don't know, you wanted to ask your partner today if you could go to the movies together. And then your partner tells you, sorry, I've already made plans with my friends today, just as an example. So, and then, you don't say, yeah, okay, we'll just go another time, but instead you're devastated and think to yourself, he doesn't love me anymore, I know exactly, he wants to break up, so, yeah, there's nothing in between. Either your partner tells you 100 times a day how much he loves and adores you, or if he doesn't do that. So, exaggerated of course, or if he doesn't do that, it's completely clear to you that it's the other extreme. He doesn't want you anymore. He doesn't love you anymore, he probably has someone else or things like that. That, of course, also has to do with a lack of self-esteem, things like that. That you immediately jump to catastrophe. Or if you've just lost your job, it's completely clear to you that you'll never get a job again. This is especially said by people who are over 50. They have this belief in their heads. Beyond 50, you won't get a job anymore anyway. For them, it's completely clear that now the catastrophe is coming, that they'll never find a job again, because they simply don't have this openness. Sometimes. And to consider a little, well, maybe there is a chance after all. So they don't even dare to hope at all that there might still be jobs for them, because there might be jobs where experience plays a role and is considered more important than being young or something like that. So, these are, for example, black and white thinking, generalization, catastrophizing, or taking things personally. This is also very typical of depressive thought patterns. What do I know? You come into the office in the morning and feel like your boss is in a bad mood. And what do you think then? You don't think, oh, maybe he had a fight with his wife this morning. Or something like that. Instead you think, what did I do wrong? Did I do something wrong? Oh no, I have to change, I have to adapt. That is a very typical depressive way of thinking. Or, yes, if you make some mistake or something like that. And even if it's just that you drop something, you immediately think, I am a complete disaster, I always do everything wrong. These are typical everyday situations where this happens to you. And I believe that this lack of flexibility, let's say, to ride the waves of life, you get knocked over every time. Every time you are criticized, when something doesn't go as you imagined, it immediately throws you off track. You lack this flexibility, I believe. I think the cause of this, the main cause is, you don't have it because you're afraid. So, I believe the cause is fear. It's this deep, lacking basic trust that many depressed people have already brought with them from their childhood. And the thing is, when we are afraid, many things already trigger it in advance. Fear. Your fear gets triggered very, very quickly. As soon as you don't have control, your fear is triggered. And that's why you're not able to think differently than usual. In fear, thinking is incredibly restricted. We have a very limited horizon. It's well known that our brains still function like they did in the Stone Age, where, I don't know, when the saber-toothed tiger came, the logical parts of the brain shut down. And everything else was no longer important. We only saw the saber-toothed tiger to fully concentrate on the fight, because at that moment we didn't need our logical thinking, but rather our courage and whatever else. And that's why, of course, in certain life situations, these brain areas are not available to us. For example, the ability to go through different possibilities of interpretation at that moment. Could it be that the boss slept poorly today, instead of immediately thinking it's my fault? And that means, if you want to regain the flexibility to react differently to life, to have alternative ways of thinking to choose from, then the most important thing, in my opinion, is to work on your fears. To let go of your desire to always control everything, to always want to be in charge. I believe it's possible because I've experienced it myself. I also had very little basic trust, which I brought from my childhood, and I used to be a person who had many, many depressive thought patterns and many fears. And I managed to overcome that too. Of course, it was a longer process. But therapy is extremely, extremely important for that. I can only keep saying it. So, changing these typically depressive thought patterns is very, very difficult to do alone. Simply because 95% of our thoughts occur unconsciously and we just don't notice them. We need someone to guide us, to accompany us, and to point these out to us. And to teach us how we can learn to change our thoughts ourselves. Through, I don't know, in cognitive behavioral therapy, there are many great techniques, thought-stopping techniques, with which you can manage to learn to check your own thoughts. So, to realize that I am having some strange thoughts and then, in the second step, to change them. And I can highly recommend that you really get help, do cognitive behavioral therapy. There are different forms of therapy, different specialties, but cognitive behavioral therapy is particularly helpful for changing thoughts. And there are, for example, a few phrases you can prepare in everyday life to practice interrupting yourself in your thoughts. These are often really like ruminating loops. It keeps coming back over and over. It won't work anyway. It won't work anyway. And these negative thoughts, they practically force themselves on you. There are many great techniques you can learn to catch yourself and interrupt them. So, EFT, of course, is the first technique I would recommend to you to change beliefs. But there are many others. And these phrases you can say to yourself. The simplest one would be stop, to interrupt yourself. There are many others I can recommend to you. I'll make another video about that, separately, where I'll introduce you to 10 possible phrases you can use to catch and interrupt your own thinking and switch your thoughts. But more on that in the next video. If you liked it, feel free to like the video. You are welcome to check out my website at www.seelenklopfen.de. You are also welcome to join my Facebook group with the name Love Yourself, for you are wonderful. And if you would like to have a coaching session with me, then just sign up, book an appointment. You can also book a free preliminary consultation. And then we'll see, maybe I can help you. All the best. Bye.